Good morning, Malcolm Nance.
Good morning, Steffi. How are you?
I am all right.
Ah,
So listen, you tweeted that one thing we were just talking about. You said disable the FBI. That's exactly how Trump and Moscow want it. It is real. You were talking about the special agent who said the government shutdown has eliminated any ability to operate. Yeah, and also we were talking about probably affecting the Mueller grand jury. Joe Weinbank's actually tweeted this morning: is this shutdown another charge of obstruction?
brilliant point by Joe Weinberg. And you might have noticed this week, a lot of people have been harping on this point. You read Sarah Kendzior's comment. Rachel Maddow did a segment of her show
Yep.
outlining this very thing is, in fact, a side effect that Donald Trump now realizes that could help him closing down the United States government and actually obstructing justice by taking money away from Mueller's grand jury by extension. We understand now that the courts are about to come to a crashing halt. The entire judicial process in the United States could go away. And it's time to ask that question. Frank Figluzzi is right. Was this part of a plan to damage the FBI? And let me tell you, I
Or to
don't care.
slow things down, I guess, until they can
Not
figure out what their next story is or what the next thing Rudy's going to say, right?
well, you're absolutely right. This morning I was writing on my forthcoming book, which we'll talk about some other time.
Yeah.
But that this is, as Joe Weinberg says, an additional charge of obstruction. Believe me, I'm sure there's conversations that are being had out there by Stephen Miller and the likes, the evil twins that they have in the White House, Ivanka and Jared, who are all discussing what the side effect would this be. Let's see what happens if Rudy Giuliani gets fired and suddenly becomes disgruntled.
Ah,
I really think that this is obstruction in plain sight. I've said that before. I actually called it treason in plain sight.
yeah. It's all in plain sight, Malcolm. I mean, and by the way, I loved what you said. You said there's no one inside the Russian chain of command handling Trump except the spy master in chief himself. I mean, he couldn't be fulfilling his wish list any better or any faster. I mean, look at how long did it take for the Deripaska sanctions document to come out, right? Reading from you, when the Trump administration announced last month it was lifting sanctions, right, against it cast the move as tough on Russia, oh dear God, and on the oligarch, arguing he had to make painful concessions to get his sanctions lifted, but a binding confidential document signed by both sides suggests the agreement was obviously far less punitive than advertised. Rachel did this the other night, of course, as well.
Right.
The deal contains provisions that free him from hundreds of millions of dollars in debt while leaving him and his allies with majority ownership of a most important company. Um,
I think
yeah.
I think the New York Times outlined that because of the sanctions, he was able to become the majority shareholder in all of his organizations, Rusal, all the aluminum companies, which was he didn't have that before. He was in a weak position, and everything that has happened in the last week with the lifting of these sanctions has made him multi millions of dollars.
Yeah.
This may have, in fact, been part of the process that Manafort was supposed to be paying off, that debt Manafort was supposed to be paying off. So, all of this, every aspect of this needs to be investigated. And I'm all for Mueller doing his investigation, but we're at the point where removal from office requires the House and the Senate to stand up and do their job. And
Yeah.
if it's up to the House to come out and start investigating in earnest, they need to start announcing it now. I mean, they need to start making it clear that these aren't just shots across the bow and talking points. They need to make it clear to the Trump administration and to the oligarchy that they are going to tear apart all of their transactions and determine whether that these people actually betrayed this nation
Yeah.
and enriched a Russian oligarch in exchange for an election.
Well, I mean, how about this? The Deripaska sanctions on the same day we hear about this Belarusian escort that has now been released from a Moscow prison. And, Malcolm, if history's any guide, how long is it going to be before she has some unfortunate accident, right?
No, she's dead woman walking.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was never a fan of these conspiracy theories early on,
Yeah.
that people who were related to the Steele dossier, people who were, calling out Putin were being murdered. Until, of course, I actually started keeping my own master list, which is being included in the next version of the plot to destroy democracy. But there is no such thing as a coincidence in this game, right?
Yeah.
Coincidence takes a lot of planning, as Nance's law states. These people are dying by the handful, and every one of them has been associated with this organizational plot. These oligarchs, they kill people on their own. Not
Yeah.
to mention that you have
Well,
Russian intelligence sending assassins using the most sophisticated poisons in the history of
well,
mankind
and now
to
we
kill people.
right, and now we know the deal because you're right. Of course, I'm sure they would think people go some hooker who says blah blah blah. Well, as you know, they got involved from the highest levels of the Kremlin. Someone flew directly to Thailand. The Russian government freaked out, shut down the guy shut down YouTube over the guy reporting it.
Right.
You tell me there's no there. She's the one that claims to have videotape, audio tape, pictures of Deripaska on a yacht talking about interference. And of course, she mentions three Americans, one of whom she has a photo of. How much you want to bet that's Paul Manafort, right?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I said this on Hardball the other night, and I'll say it every time. We are literally dealing with James Bond villains over there. The oligarchy of Russia are out of control. They have been allowed to exist as subcontractors of Vladimir Putin's agencies, forever. And now they kill people with alarming regularity.
Yeah.
And if it's in the interest of the Federation, they can use all the resources of the Russian government with Putin's nod. They are the dirty tricks teams of these of the Kremlin. And if we allow this to happen anywhere outside of their own country, and I'm sorry, I don't think there's anything we can do for this woman. She's going to wake up dead.
Ugh,
But
I know. I mean, she appealed to obviously the U.S. government. I guess not realizing the U.S. government is run by the guy that Putin installed. He's not going to help you, obviously.
Can't you hang out with Julian Assange?
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you, Julian Assange is about to have his own problems. But let me make one thing perfectly clear. I think that now that we have candidates who are running for office on the Democratic platform, the question has to be brought to them, and they must answer it. Will you go after Russia for the attack against the United States in the 2016 election? And anybody that waffles should be booted off the stage.
Yep.
Because right now, if we don't commit as a nation to defending what was done to us, to go back and right these wrongs, to tear apart all of these machinations by Russian intelligence. I was one of the first, actually, I believe it's in the end of the plot to hack America, my first book, where I said the U.S. intelligence community needs to be unleashed against the Russians. I think my recommendation was steal every dollar of oligarch money around the world.
Yeah. Well,
freeze it, steal it. And if our people who are running for president want to take a soft tone on that, they shouldn't be president. They should at least live up to Hillary Clinton's standard, where she said she will view an attack on democracy as a terrorist attack.
Yeah, I mean, based on today's headlines, Malcolm, Mueller sure is bearing down on a number of fronts. This one, wow, look at who's involved. Mark Burnett, producer of The Apprentice, reached out to one of Trump's closest advisors to see if he would sit down with a banker who has long held ties to Russia. He recently attracted the attention of congressional investigators as one more name on the expanding list of Americans with established ties inside the Kremlin who appears to have been seeking access to the newly elected president. This one, Mueller wants to know about 2016 Trump campaign's ties to the NRA. Sam Nunberg said, when I was interviewed by Mueller's team, I was asked about the Trump campaign and our dealings with the NRA. Listen to Adam Schiff.
I have an entire.
Okay. Listen to Adam Schiff.
I have an entire chapter on it.
Hang on. Here we go.
Well, we certainly have had grounds for concern about how the Russians were using the NRA as a back channel, and we never had the opportunity to look into some of the financial issues that you mentioned. The majority at the time took the view, essentially, that this was too hot for them to handle, that there was nothing to see here. Well, we now know via the special counsel's office there was plenty to see here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Malcolm.
Yeah.
You were talking about.
I was saying, plot to destroy democracy. has a half chapter on the NRA funneling money to the Trump campaign and how the Maria Butina and Alexander Torshin had started in 2010 to co-opt the NRA. I mean, it's just utterly amazing. They had dozens of contacts. These people literally were buying that institution. And the only question we don't know is, did they funnel all of this oligarch money to the NRA? And did the NRA illicitly funnel it to Donald Trump? And that's what Adam Schiff is saying needs to be investigated. It was one of multiple channels that Russia was buying, not just Trump, but the Republican Party. I just because of the activities that occurred yesterday with regards to the vote on NATO, I had to change the chapter title in my new book. It's now called, Attack of the Treason Caucus. And that's exactly what's happening here. We have a block of Republicans that no longer care about America. And they're willing to conduct what would arguably call treason in any estimation of it out in our face.
Yeah. Malcolm, I didn't have a chance to ask you yet what your take is on the BuzzFeed article, the Mueller statement, the BuzzFeed pushing back and saying, and standing by their story. And they also dropped some receipts on Rudy Giuliani with the actual plans for Trump Tower Moscow. And,
I got all chuckly yesterday with regards to the Trump Tower plans and the signed letter of intent by Donald Trump, where they said there were no plans. Well, as you know, my Mrs. Nance was a mega project landscape architect in the Middle East, and she had multi-billion-dollar budgets. And I went over a concept art plan and development plan for that Trump Tower, and that requires a year just to do the conceptual art. It requires another year to work out the letter of intent. And it will require another year to do the architectural plans. This was done in 2015, and it all leads back to that critical year, 2013, the Miss Universe pageant year. So when Trump came out of Miss Universe and said, hey, we're going to have Trump Tower, this was already well underway for them to get to what they were delivering in 2015, 2016.
Right. All right. So let's, because I know we're running out of time as usual. But
sure.
What do you make of this bag of rats fighting Jerome Corsi and Roger Stone? So Roger Stone posted a new video to Instagram attacking one-time associate Jerome Corsi for supposedly spilling dirt on him to Bob Mueller. Corsi's, it's hard to tell what is going on here, right?
Oh my God. Well, that's not hard to tell. What's going on there is what you said, bag of rats fighting, right?
Yeah.
This is what you're going to find out. As each one starts to realize that they are all being thrown under the bus, they will come at each other. The beautiful part about it, and this is a great prosecutor, is when they each think they're defending Donald Trump, right? While defending themselves, when in fact they're all literally eating each other.
Yeah.
What can I say? It's time for the impeachment duck to come out and make his
indictment duck.
Debut. Indictment duck.
Thank you.
It's time to
Malcolm. It's a thing.
Cue Layla by Eric Clapton, the end of Goodfellas. It all just comes tumbling down.
You're right. No. One last thing about the BuzzFeed thing.
Yeah.
I think that the BuzzFeed thing is half true.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, they attacked components of the argument, but not the entire argument.
Yep.
And again, in the middle of Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein were said that they had something completely wrong, and in the end turned out to be completely right. So I'm not giving up on anything.
Yeah, no, me neither. That's what I said. I think there's another shoe to drop. Oh, here's my movie reference that you'll like, Malcolm, about the shutdown is the Kevin Costner movie No Way Out, when he's trying to slow down the computer thing so that they don't find the Russian mole. That's what they're trying to slow it down.
The beautiful part
Computer
about
analysis.
that movie was he was trying to trap the president with one gift that he had kept in violation of the emoluments clause. It's just so cute and quaint back then. He's like, he kept this diamond crusted ashtray. We've gotten look, the Chinese just took a shot at Ivanka Trump by giving her 5 more
trademarks
licenses.
Yeah.
China is doing that to trap her in a corruption charge.
Oh my God.
And you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't think that's going to be too hard. All right, Malcolm, great stuff. Talk to you next week, sir.
Take care.
All right. Love you. Bye.